What's up, ladies? Hey, welcome to the third training of Frizz To Fab. And today we're really going to put together the piece of the puzzles so that you can feel confident, trusting your intuition, trusting your intuition, trusting your hand feel, understanding what you're seeing and feeling with your hair. And what we've talked about already, right? How your porosity changes based on its location on your hair, right? We talked about how the older your hair is, the more exposed it's been to damage, and also the location on your hair really plays into that, right? So the top layer, for example, has a lot more exposure because there's nothing really protecting it from the elements, from your pillowcases, from the water in the shower, from the sun, from the wind, from the cold, from your hat, all of these types of things, right? Your under layer is much more protected. So you guys can feel the difference in what porosity feels like just by touching your top layer versus your bottom layer. You can also feel what buildup might feel like. So depending on your situation, a lot of people tend to get buildup kind of in the nape of your neck area or on the top layer for many of the same reasons that your top layer gets more damaged, right? So we really spent that first week of this series talking about that hand feel and getting comfortable and starting to recognize the difference in what porosity feels like. What is the difference between high porosity and low porosity? Not just, you know, the book difference that everybody kind of talks about where lower porosity hangs on to hydration longer, so maybe it takes longer to dry, even though all hair kind of takes a long time to dry, especially when you're working on the hydration the way that we are in the Consciously Curly method, right? But then also, what does low porosity feel like, and what are the challenges there? Then we started talking about the idea of the wash day cycle and how you can kind of manipulate the porosity of your hair, not just based on the location and where your hair is located, right? Where's your higher porosity and lower porosity areas, but also how does your porosity change throughout your wash day, right? We talked about how when you're washing away all of that product, all the buildup, all the life, all the dirt, all the dead skin cells, all the natural oil, you're creating space, right? So that's going to be your hair at its highest porosity moment. And if you're able to take your hair to day 5, day 7, day 9, day 12, and really bring it to the other extreme, see what buildup feels like, just for the sake of knowing what buildup feels like, what your hair might feel like if it was lower porosity, or what your hair feels like when it's just got buildup on it. Both of these are so incredibly important. Exposing yourself to this kind of the two extremes on the scale are going to help you find the perfect medium and keep your hair kind of in balance throughout your journey. It's such a powerful tool. This truly is the course on hand feel and mastering hand feel and getting to a place where you can trust your intuition, you can trust what you're seeing and feeling, and you have an arsenal of tools that can help you under either condition kind of bring things back to center. So I hope that that's super helpful. If it is, let me know. Let's just take a moment here to just settle in, grab your notes if you have any, or a glass of water or whatever you need, and just take a deep breath with me through the nose and then hold at the top and release. And just arrive at this moment. I'm so proud of you for taking the opportunity and just a little bit of time out for yourself to get to understand yourself a little bit better. This is the kind of journey that starts with your hair and it grows in your soul. So when you take out this intentional time to really work on yourself, even if it's just as something as trivial as your hair, what you're going to find through this journey is that it's so much more than hair. When you start to understand your hair and what it needs and how it feels and how it changes, you're going to learn so much about yourself. And feel free to take the lessons of this course to any and all aspects of your life where you feel like inserting that consciousness and that patience and that understanding can really bring benefit. I guarantee you it can help you in thousands of facets of life. So today I want to talk a little bit, by the way, as always, go ahead and drop your questions in the comments below. I am bringing up the video on my phone so that I can kind of answer your questions as we go. So be sure that you guys are doing that. Let me just turn the volume down here. And yeah, this is your time. So, and it's so much easier for me to answer your questions on video when I can truly give you my full thoughts and not just typing it out. It's just way more powerful. So today I want to talk about, I started outlining for you guys, and I'm going to finish this up and publish it as kind of the summary and homework post, but I'm kind of making this flow chart of your curly routine, right? And this is going to be so incredibly powerful because now you know what your hair feels like when it's at its highest porosity, when it feels, you know, based on our hand feel chart from week number 1, right? Hair that is higher porosity can't hold hydration. So when it's dry, it might look dry, bulky, lion's mane, I like to call it, right? Like that kind of big frizz. Hard and coarse are words that I hear often, kind of like your hair just feels sandpaper-like. Lighter in color is definitely something that's an indication of dried out, dehydrated hair. No clumps, right? Again, that lion's mane kind of frizz. When it's wet, you're going to feel that coarseness running down your hair shaft, right? We talked about what high porosity feels like in your hands, right? Your hair might feel delicate or crispy or clumpness. There might feel like there's individual knots on a hair strand, right? That kind of like coarseness, even though there's no knots there. These are all signs of higher porosity, and you guys can figure out what that feels like to you and what words you would describe it as by doing a wash day and seeing what your hair feels like compared to every other day when it's wet. You could take it one step further and do a clarification or a chelating shampoo, right? Something that might remove any layer of buildup that is stopping your hair from actually feeling and being high at its highest porosity, right? Really bring your hair to that extreme and take notes. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? Are you noticing anything different about how your hair interacts with water, right? And then you can do the opposite. You can bring your hair to day 6, day 9, day 12, and see what does your hair feel like when it has buildup. Life has been building up on your hair for, let's say, 9 days, right? And I actually have a great example that I'm going to show you. Part of your homework this week, if you have not already seen the wash day series, let me just bring this up here. I'm going to make me small. There's my screen. Hello, I'm down here. This is the cover photo for the wash day series. This is going to be part of your homework assignment to watch at least the recap, but just look at these 2 photos. My day 2 hair, meaning I washed the day before, and my day 9 hair. In both of these photos, I worked water into my hair actively with my fingertips for 60 seconds. Can you see the difference? I want you guys to do a very similar experiment. And this was, you know, a huge part of your homework last week. If you haven't done it yet, make it your homework this week, because really getting to notice and understand how your hair reacts differently with water without product, just working water into your hair. How does that change when your hair is clean versus when your hair is built up? And you're going to notice as you go that when you pay attention to that feeling, when you pay attention to those differences, that you're going to be able to bring your hair more so in either direction. So you'll be able to, on day 2 hair, your hair will, because you just washed it, right? So there's lots of space. It's higher porosity. It should clump easier. And that will get easier as your hair gets healthier. And then bring your hair to day 9 hair, right? And your hair is going to be probably more matted, more tangled, more sticky, more hard, more coarse, more stiff. All of the things that we have in the hand feel chart under hair that can't get hydrated. So now you guys are going to start recognizing, what do these 2 ends of the spectrum feel like for you? And what solutions are there? This chart even has when your hair feels this way, when your hair I'm hoping that that worked. Okay. Leave the video and come back. Okay. I think it's working now. So that's awesome. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of getting you in a place where you feel confident, trusting your intuition, trusting your hand feel based on the knowledge that you've gained over the first 2 weeks of this course. Okay, so good. I'm so glad you guys are back with me. So what I made, what I kind of showed you earlier in this video is this kind of outline. This is going to be like a flow chart of steps that you're going to take when you're approaching your hair in the shower. Okay, so the first thing I do, I wake up, I look in the mirror, I'm like, I'm not going to refresh my hair today. It's time to eat, to get it. Like I need to start over, right? So I look at my hair, I have a plan. Okay, maybe it's only my 3rd day hair. So I'm like, I don't think I need to wash my hair. I haven't done anything crazy. There shouldn't be that much buildup, but I'm going to get my hair wet and start over, kind of do a wet refresh, right? Or it's day 9. I can't believe I've took my hair this long. Like it's definitely time to cleanse. Like I kind of come up with a rough plan, right? And this takes me like 3 seconds on the fly as I'm kind of like turning the shower on. I'm like, okay, I feel like it's a wash day. But before I stick to that plan, before I write it in stone, I saturate my hair, because watching how my hair interacts with water can totally change my initial opinion of what I thought I needed to do or where I thought my hair was at when it was dry. So the first thing I do when I get in the shower, like I do a check-in, okay, I think I'm gonna need to do a wash day, or I think I'm gonna just do a wet refresh, whatever it is. Then I saturate my hair. I get in the shower, I put my hair upside down, I detangle it fully. So whatever you have to do to get your hair detangled fully. You could start at the ends and work to the roots. Oftentimes I'll just use one finger. I call it thumbing, where I kind of grasp a section in my palm, and I just stick one finger to kind of break the knots into more manageable pieces, so that when I'm raking through with my fingers, I can actually like get through, right? So thumbing is a great strategy. Palming and thumbing and gliding and raking. Oftentimes, especially when women are just getting started, or if there's a serious long-term buildup situation and your hair is kind of sticking and matting, then maybe you need to use conditioner to get through your hair and get it fully saturated, like whatever it is. Step number one, get your hair fully saturated, right? And notice how it interacts with water. Is it behaving like it does when your hair is on wash day? So when my hair is on wash day, after I cleanse, right? That's the moment. Directly after I cleanse is the moment where my hair is highest porosity. Now, sometimes when, especially if I used a clarifier or chelator or removed kind of a layer of buildup, or if you are kind of just starting the clean product journey, right? And you're removing maybe years and layers of buildup, the hand feel might not be that great after you cleanse, and that's okay. But what I want you to notice is, how is your hair interacting with water once you get it detangled? Again, if you cleanse and you can't really detangle your hair because it's so matted and so knotted and so high porosity that it's like the static electricity is just real and it's tangling, add a little bit of conditioner, right? The idea is to just get your hair to a place where it's kind of, I don't want to say clumping, because the real clumping happens with conditioning, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But when your hair is just kind of naturally hanging over the top of your hair, soaking wet, and I know you guys know what I'm talking about, where it just naturally kind of breaks up. It looks like one kind of piece until like about here, and then it starts breaking up into, you know, maybe a handful to two handfuls of natural kind of curly, clumpy. And this is going to change when, based on your hair may not clump like mine. Your hair may not break up into 10 clumps. If you have more coily, more naturally high porosity, or hair that I was describing before, right, that just feels super high porosity, really dry, coarse, not clumping at all after cleansing, that's okay. What I want you to notice is what your hair looks like when it's fully saturated after cleansing for you. And how does that change this week, next month, next year, because it's going to get better. So your clumps, if you have naturally higher porosity hair, generally when your hair is dry, the hair maybe clumps into clumps of like a dozen strands. Whereas my hair clumps into, you know, this clump probably has 40 hair strands in it, right? This one. And I even have some bigger clumps over here that are probably more like 100 hair strands. So if your hair only clumps into 12 pieces of hair when it's dry, when it's wet, it might triple. So my clumps will get 3 times larger. If your hair only clumps into clumps of 12 strands or 4 strands when it's dry, because your hair is just naturally more coily and more voluminous like that, just know that your clumps may 3x in size and still be very different than mine. Does that make sense? Kind of how clumping, I think that what throws a lot of people off, especially in the more kinky, coily hair world, is that so many of us are talking about these super rich, thick clumps that we get, the seaweedy clumps, and that's great for people whose hair naturally clumps together in larger clumps. But if your hair's not doing that, then you're not looking for seaweedy clumps. You're just looking for the clumpiest that your hair can be. And again, this is why I want you guys to take your hair to these extremes, to a state of, you know, lots of buildup and paying attention to what it looks like right after you cleanse it, because you're going to notice what's normal for your hair. Okay. So you get to a place where your hair is fully saturated and you cleanse it and you notice, what does your hair look like? After I cleanse, my hair starts to take on hydration, because finally, don't be scared of the extremes. Do not be scared of the extremes, because literally, the worst thing that can happen, worst case scenario, is you put your hair up in a hair tie and you try again tomorrow. It's really not that bad. Like, don't take this too serious, but understanding your hand feel when your hair is directly after you cleanse is when your hair is highest porosity. Or use a Malibu Undo Goo, use an ascorbic acid, use a detox shampoo, whatever it is, and feel what your hair feels like when it's clean. Feel that coarseness, feel that dryness, but also notice how your hair takes on hydration. Finally, there's nothing blocking hydration out. Finally, that layer of product and oil and dead skin cells and life and dirt and air pollution and whatever God else you've encountered throughout the week is gone, and water's finally able to enter your hair shaft for the first time, okay? But then what does your hair feel like when all of that shit builds up on your hair? You have to know what it feels like, because you have to be able to recognize it. Take your hair to the extremes, because it's so important for you to be able to understand, okay, this is what my hair feels like when it has buildup. This is what my hair looks like when it has buildup. When my hair has buildup, it, like, again, that photo that I showed you, the cover photo of the wash day cycle, you can see what my hair looks like when it has buildup. You can see how it's matted together and tangled. Even when I have it fully saturated and detangled, it's still all matted together in one huge piece and not breaking up into its clumps, right? So I get to a place where I fully saturate my hair in the shower, and my hair naturally kind of breaks up into these curl clumps. And then I check in. Does my hair look like the photo in day 2, where it's easily breaking up into clumps and doing the thing? Or is it fighting the hydration? Is it blocking out? Is it frizzing out as soon as I take it out of water? Is it matted and tangled and sticky and tacky and hard, right? This is how I determine whether it's wash day or not. I don't determine that it's wash day because it's a Monday. I don't wash my hair because the back of the shampoo bottle tells me to do it every day. I don't do it because it's a Sunday evening and this is when I wash my hair. Like, that's not how I roll. I let my hair tell me when it's time to cleanse based on how I see it when it's wet. So the very first step I do every single time I get in the shower, right? So again, that's first step. My hair is dry. I have a loose plan. I think today is wash day. That's my plan. I get my hair soaking wet in the shower and I check in again. How is it interacting with water? Is it fighting the water? If it's fighting the water, there's something blocking the water out. And so I go to a cleanse. If it's not, and it's taking on hydration well, and it's forming those kind of smooth curl clumps that I know my hair can be, and it's headed in that direction, I don't cleanse. I don't. I go to condition. And if I feel like, okay, my original plan was it's wash day, but my hair's taken on hydration pretty well, so maybe I'll do a co-wash. Like, I'll still use the mechanical motion, which literally does all of the cleansing, and cleanse my scalp. And honestly, co-washes are so powerfully cleansing that if your hair is taking on hydration and you still feel like you need to cleanse, it is the solution for you, because over cleansing just causes damage for no reason. So this is the power of the wet refresh. If your hair is taking on that hydration, but you feel like it's a wash day, the co-wash is the compromise. So sometimes I will get to the condition step. So I'll go from saturate to either cleanse or condition, right? And then after cleanse, you always go to condition. So saturate helps me decide, how is my hair taking on water? And again, the test that we did last week where you take your hair to those extremes is going to help you determine, when you saturate your hair, are you cleansing or are you conditioning? And again, I have this all laid out in this flow chart that I'm going to finish up and give to you guys as part of the homework this week. So when I go to conditioning, there are some times when I condition my hair and I work on those curl clumps, and then I notice that this is where it starts behaving like that day 9 hair. This is where it kind of starts frizzing out. This is where it kind of starts acting like my goal in the shower. I talk about this a lot in a course that we have called Fall in Love with Your Curls. There's this like 3 objective system. The first objective when you get in the water, or when you get in the shower, is to get water inside of the hair shaft, right? So we just kind of talked about that. How is hair taking on water when you fully saturate it? If it's not taking on the water, you cleanse. If it is, you can move on, right? Okay, the gate's open, move on. The next step is to create the clumpiest, smoothest curl clumps that your hair can be. And you can base that off of, what is the clumpiest and smoothest I've ever seen my hair be? Okay, that's the goal. Until you create curls that are clumpier and smoother in the shower, that's the goal, right? So if I'm adding conditioner with that goal in mind, with that objective in mind, I'm going for, the smoothest and clumpiest that I know my hair can be, and I'm conditioning and I'm working it in, I'm scrunching it in, I'm raking it in, and I'm finding that my hair is fighting it. I'm finding that my hair is going back to the situation where it can't get hydrated. So it's frizzing out, it's feeling matted, it's feeling hard, it's feeling coarse, it's feeling stiff. Then maybe I'm like, okay, abandon the plan. Abandon the wet refresh plan. I thought when I saturated my hair that it was clumping well and I was headed on the right path to it being clumpy and smooth and good. But then when I added conditioner, it started fighting me. Like, okay, I'm going to abandon this plan and cleanse and then come back to conditioning. I do this often because I'm always trying to extend the number of days between cleansing. If I decide at the beginning of my shower, I'm not going to wash today, I'm going to move on to conditioner, and then I get to conditioner and my hair is fighting the hydration and it's frizzing out immediately, and I'm feeling like the water is superficial, it's just sitting on the outside of my hair, it's not truly being absorbed inside, then I go back to that cleanse. And then I come back to the condition. And you'll notice when you start playing with these patterns that when your hair is not taking on that hydration in a condition, and then you cleanse and then you condition, you're going to notice a big difference. Like, you're going to notice a difference. But these are the things you have to start paying attention to, is like noticing that difference. If you weren't checked in and you weren't trying to notice it, you might not. You know what I mean? So then there's a decision that you make again after you condition. You do that check-in, right? Is my hair the smoothest and clumpiest that I know it can be? If it's not, I have a decision. Do I want to cleanse, or do I want to just finish this out and see how it goes? I know it's not going to be the best hair day ever, but whatever. Or do you want to cleanse and then condition, right? I mean, all of this is happening in a matter of like 5 minutes. It's not like this is taking that much time for me to make these decisions. It becomes second nature, right? So then after I condition, I almost always, after the first condition, put it in my hair up in a little clip, and I call it a condition plop, and I do other showery things. So then normally, under good scenarios, when my hair is as clumpy and as smooth as it can be with that first condition, when I take it down, it's still feeling clumpy and smooth. I add a little bit of water and I move on to styling. Okay. But let's say that you take your hair down from the condition plop, or you're working in this first set of conditioner, and your hair is not as smooth and as clumpy as it can be. It's not. So you have that decision. You can go back to cleansing, or maybe a double condition would work. Because remember what conditioner does. Conditioner bonds to water and also is attracted to hair. So it pulls that water into tight spaces into the hair shaft, right? So If my hair has a little bit of buildup on it, then it's not going to be as smooth or as clumpy as it could be at this point. So I can rinse that conditioner out and reach for conditioner again. And that second condition is going to pull enough water into my hair that I'm getting the smooth curl clumps that I'm looking for. Does that make sense? So like after the condition, you have so many different ways you can go. If your hair is really not taking on hydration at all and it's frizzing and it's just feeling blech, you can go back to cleansing. If you think there might be a chance that you can still make it happen, you know what conditioner does to your hair. You know the kind of hand feel that it brings to the table. Would a little bit more of that get you there? Do another condition, right? Do the bowl method. Work the conditioner in more deeply, right? There's so many ways to use conditioner deeply to bring that hydration into hair that's fighting it. You can do a double condition. You can add one more pump of conditioner on top of the conditioner that's already in there. You can add a little bit more water, right? This is huge. Oftentimes, I will feel like I need to add more conditioner when in fact, if I just add a little bit more water, it does the trick. So I encourage you to do that first. If that doesn't work, rinse it out and try it again, or reach for another pump of conditioner, or grab the bowl and start working it in more, right? Until you get to a place where you're pretty confident that these are pretty epically smooth curl clumps, right? Now you have a decision. Do you want to fill or do you want to seal? Okay. The fill step in almost all circumstances, and remember that as much as fillers and sealers are product based, so generally speaking, fillers are your curl creams and sealers are your gel, and everything else is somewhere in between. Okay. But what's more important than the product is how you use it. If you're bringing a styling product to the table, I don't care if it's gel or foam or a serum or a custard or a pomade or a cream or whatever it is, if you're scrunching it and roping it and pulsing it or coiling it, or like these are strategies that are filling the gap. So any additional coarseness that you might feel. So for example, those smooth curl clumps that I told you I was trying to create with conditioner, right? When it is closer to wash day, because my hair is higher porosity, there's less buildup in my hair. Even when I have those smooth curl clumps, there's a hint of coarseness to my hair. Just a little bit. I can still feel that cuticle. It's texturized. I can feel it. That's how I know that my hair needs filler. So I can condition all I like, but conditioner doesn't work like a filler. Conditioner bonds to water and brings water into the hair and is attracted to hair, so it sits close to the inside of the hair shaft. What filler does, it's a little bit tackier. It's not necessarily made to go deep inside the hair shaft. It's more so made to superficially sit on the hair shaft where the cuticle is lifted, get under there just a little bit so that it makes the hole a little bit smaller. It traps the hydration inside. It makes the hole a little bit smaller so that the air outside, which almost always, unless you're in Florida, is drier than the super saturated hair inside. So it's almost always, by the law of thermodynamics and equilibrium, the way that kind of physics works is it's always trying to have, like, we're talking about humidity. It's always trying to create an equilibrium in humidity. It wants your hair to be the same humidity as the air. So if your hair is more saturated, meaning it has water, because the air's relative humidity is usually not 100%, which is what your hair would be when it's soaking wet. So the air is trying to steal that water. So what filler does is create that barrier. So it stops the air from stealing the water inside your hair shaft. It stops gravity from like pulling the water out of the hair and breaking the surface tension, because the water in your hair is kind of being stuck there with surface tension because it's touching the inside of your hair shaft. But if that surface tension breaks and when gravity kind of pulls it out, then so the filler stops that. If your hair at the condition step is the smoothest, chunkiest you've ever seen it, it's feeling great, it's feeling amazing, hallelujah, praise the Lord, then move on to seal. You don't need to fill. Fill is an optional step that fills the gap and creates that barrier. Lower porosity hair types don't need the gap filled because there is no gap. There is no gap, okay? So filling is not for everyone. Filling is not for all locations on your hair. Your roots, for example, we know our roots are lower porosity than our ends because they've been exposed to less damage and all the things, right? We talked about that in week 1. So your roots don't really have to be filled. More so your ends have more of a gap and need more fill. Now, conditioners can be fillers, especially with lower porosity hair where you really don't have a lot of space to fill. That's where something like a leave-in conditioner would come in. If you really like that feeling of conditioner, kind of using it as a styler product in a leave-in conditioner situation, then like, yeah, that can totally count as your filler, but you probably don't have a lot to fill because it's not really like filling the gap. It's like its goal is not to fill the gap. More so what a leave-in conditioner does via humectants is hold water close to the outside of the hair shaft so that lower porosity hair that has this tight cuticle has longer to absorb the water. So as you're moving into styling and starting to dry, that water is still sitting on the outside of your hair, hoping that your hair can just drink up every last drop before it evaporates away. That's more so where a leave-in conditioner comes in. Lower porosity strategy. Higher porosity strategy after conditioner, if you're still feeling a little bit of texture compared to what you know your hair can be, filler comes in. And we're going to be talking about, like, next week is all about filling strategies and when to use it. And then the week after, we're going to talk about sealing strategies. And then the week after that, I'm going to do some live demos for you guys and sample routines. So like specific steps that I would take on a low porosity day versus a high porosity day. Okay. So that's kind of the outline for the rest of the course. So you have that decision to make, and the decision that you make while you're conditioning is going to be kind of the full Monty, because you have so many avenues you can take. You can go back to the beginning and start cleansing. You can stay at the conditioning stage and keep doing it, or you can go to fill if you're like confident in the conditioning and the hydration piece, and you just want to start trapping that water in. Or if your hair doesn't need help trapping that water in, you just go to seal. Does that make sense? And let me know in the comments below. Are you guys starting to see how the hand feel work that we've been doing over the last 2 weeks really fit into designing this curly routine? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to ask any questions that you have. So that's kind of where I'm going to leave today's training. We're going to move into the decision that you make during filling and sealing as we kind of move through this course. But putting this all kind of together for you guys, I wanted to make sure that we spent the time to really connect the pieces of the puzzle that we've been creating over the past 2 weeks and getting you to a place where you feel confident and have the tools that you need to trust your hand feel. So if you guys have not done the exercise where you're noticing the extremes, right? Do a cleanse or a double cleanse or a chelate or a clarification or something that brings your hair to the highest porosity that it can, and then bring your hair to as far away from that day as you can and notice the difference. Write about it in your journals. So season, for example, I'm going to go through some of your journals and stuff now, unless you guys have any questions. So like season, for example, asked in her journal, she did a wet refresh as part of the homework. And in her journal, I'm just going to bring it up here. I love that you guys are loving these journals, by the way. She said, today I did a wet refresh. Look at this hot mess. I got back in the shower, got it real wet by raking it, added 2 pumps of conditioner with water, 2 pumps of I Create Volume, which I emulsified, and then did 2 pumps of I Create Hold with Prey Hands. But you said at one point, I forget where you said it. You said, like, I don't understand the point of the wet refresh, right? Now, for you specifically, Season, I think that the wet refresh can be an incredibly powerful tool for you because I know that you are dyeing your hair, lightening it specifically, which causes a lot of damage. Right off the bat, I know that your hair is higher porosity and your hair struggles to hang on to that hydration. But also because I know that you dye your hair and especially lighten it, I know that there are sulfates and silicons being introduced into your life because I know how color works. And not only does color itself have silicons, but also the conditioners that they use after dyeing your hair almost always have silicons, and that's why they're everybody's favorite conditioners because they have such an amazing hand feel. But so you have a buildup situation and you have a damage situation, and in both of those situations, the wet refresh is super powerful because the buildup is stopping your hair from getting hydration inside, and the damage is stopping your hair from being able to hang on to hydration for very long. So the little bit of hydration that's getting through the buildup is leaving your hair easily. Okay. So because of that, the wet refresh, I think you're going to find in practice is actually incredibly powerful for you because it gives you a situation where you can rehydrate your hair without having to cleanse it. What's going to be big for you is getting rid of the idea that a wet refresh isn't going to work for you before you do it. Because if you go into it thinking, I don't get it, this isn't going to work, like you're manifesting that result. Do you know what I mean? If you went in saying, I trust the process, I want to get my hair hydrated, I know cleansers cause damage, I need to see if I can hydrate my hair, what I can do, anything I can do to hydrate my hair that doesn't include a cleanser so that I don't always have to bring damage to the table when I want to hydrate my hair. Like if you went in with that mindset, with more curiosity and more like, I wonder how I could solve this problem without using something that I know is introducing damage. If that's the mentality you have, then you're bringing curiosity and you're bringing kind of that experimentation state of mind to the table rather than the idea that this isn't going to work and just manifesting. Does that make sense? But what else? Amy asked a question. I said that I create volume as both a filler and a sealer. I'm contemplating trying a one styler wet refresh with I create volume. I just wanted your opinion on that. Yeah, I absolutely love I create volume. I used it as my sole styler today, actually. Yeah, I did. So I need more fill when it's closer to wash day because my hair is higher porosity. I removed any oils or anything on my hair that was helping my hair hang on to hydration to longer, but which was also blocking hydration out of my hair. I removed all that, and my hair needs more fill in order to trap the hydration I'm putting in it when it's closer to wash day. Okay. Now, in the winter, my filler is quiet, calm, curl control because I need my filler to create a solid barrier because the air is freaking dry. There's dry heat, it's dry cold. I live in New York. Like the atmosphere is constantly trying to steal hydration from my hair in the winter. And this has taken me, 2.5 years of using exclusively Intersense products to figure this out, right? So this is my third winter going through it. So I found patterns, but you better believe I didn't notice these patterns right away. Okay. And it probably will take you some time going through the seasons to figure out what products you like better in winter and summer and whatever. In the summer, I still want to create that barrier, like especially on wash day, but it doesn't need to be so much because there's water in the air, and the water in the air, like, it's not stealing hydration from my hair as much. So my filler will be, on wash day, maybe like I create volume mixed with I create lift. I love that combination. It actually kind of makes a cream that is very similar to the Quiet Calm, but much lighter in weight. So I really like that. But I often use I Create Volume as my soul styler. Now that my hair has gotten healthier, I can use it even on wash day as a filler. And then I use it as a sealer also. So play around with when it works for you. Like for you specifically, Alyssa, I think that you may, especially because it's winter. I'm trying to think of where you live. I'm pretty sure I saw you wearing a sweater, so you must be somewhere cold. You may want something, especially on your top layer. I know you've been struggling that layer. Not only, it's almost in the same situation that we were talking about with season. Not only does it have buildup, blocking hydration out, but it also is more damaged than the rest of your hair, which is totally normal. Everybody's top layer is more damaged than the rest of your hair. And for your entire curly journey, you focus on your top layer more than the rest of your hair, because the rest of your hair kind of heals itself because it's been protected by your top layer for so long, right? That the rest of your hair really tends to cooperate quite a bit more easily than the bottom layer, or than the top layer. But with that being said, you may want that additional fill on your top layer, but play around with it. When I Create Volume as a filler, I always emulsify all the Intersense products in my hands really well. I rake it through. I almost always do my first rake like this to get the top layer. So I'm raking kind of like a bear claw rake though. It's not so much like a detangle rake where I'm like going in with my thumbs and I'm like going like this kind of. It's more like a this rake, like, and I'm smoothing, right? And then I do a lot of scrunching with the I Create Volume. So I scrunch a lot when I use it as a filler. Whereas as a sealer, I just come in with the prayer hands. However, what I did today, which I think might be beneficial for you on that top layer, if you're going to try to use, I mean, I Create Volume or really any filler you want, after you fill, so after you rake it all the way through and then scrunch it in to really get it into the gaps that still exist, try finger coiling. That's what I did today. I just like to experiment with different styling strategies and see what I can create. I mean, I'm not at a place right now where I'm journaling about it and really noticing the difference, but like I don't know if I've ever done the same routine twice. It's just not in my blood I'm not a woman of routine. So I don't like approach my hair exactly the same every single day. I just kind of trust my gut and do whatever feels good and whatever I'm feeling called to do. So today I felt called to finger coil. And so I was like also playing around with, you know, if you finger coil with one hand versus the other, you're spinning in different directions. So like my left hand goes clockwise and my right hand goes counterclockwise. So I was like alternating the curl clumps when I was finger coiling, just like because I felt like it. So I finger coiled into I don't know, a dozen or so clumps, and then I scrunched each individual coil afterwards. And then I went straight from that fill step to a towel twist, and towel twisted for like maybe 4 or 5 minutes, took it down, prayer hand, I Create Hold as my sealer, and clipped. Okay. But I mean, I personally like to do the sealer before I towel twist, but I wanted to play around with damp styling today. Find what feels good. But yeah, I mean, you can absolutely use I Create Volume as your soul styler, 100%. Just after you scrunch and do the coils, go get a little bit more and now come at your hair with a totally different approach. When you're sealing, you're not filling the gap, you're sealing the cuticle shut. So if you need to scrunch after you prayer hands, that's fine. Like if you prayer hands and it brings your hair kind of flat, you lose your curl pattern and you're like, what the hell? Add a scrunch. You can scrunch in a sealer if you want. It's more like a light scrunch. I would call it more like a place or like a cup. It's more like this and not like this. Like there's like your intention with your scrunch changes everything. Just the state of mind. I'm editing some video right now for the Fall in Love with Your Curls course. And I was watching it and we were talking about in this video that like when you scrunch, your mindset is everything. If you're scrunching your hair, so we were talking about the condition step. But if you're scrunching your hair with the idea of like, I need to scrunch the water out, like I want to scrunch the water out, it's totally different than when you think like, I need to scrunch my hair because I'm scrunching the water in. Just the thought that you have, the intention behind your scrunch is going to unconsciously, subconsciously change how you're placing your scrunch, where you're placing it, how long you hold it, whether you're pulsing it. Like all of those kind of instinctual actions come from what is your intention with this action. So if you're scrunching as a filler and you're like in your head, you're like, okay, my hair feels coarse. I want to, get some I create volume underneath the cuticle so that when I come in with prayer hands or with a sealer, there's something for it to stick to. Cool. And then when you come in with a sealer, if you're like, okay, my intention with this scrunch is to help the cuticle lay flat, like your intention is everything. So you can scrunch with the sealer. The original Curly Girl method had a lot of scrunching with sealer. So they didn't have the fill step in the original Curly Girl method. The original Curly Girl method was don't wash with sulfates anymore, don't condition with silicons anymore, and style with gel. So it was cleanse, condition, seal. The fill is an extra step that's put in for women with higher porosity hair to help their hair hang on to hydration longer so that it doesn't dry out in an hour or in a day or even 2 days. And you can start to extend the number of days between when you need to get your hair wet again because the filler, right? So it was like added on kind of later. It was actually the curly hair artistry who brought kind of fillers into the realm. But the original Curly Girl method doesn't even talk about fillers. So fillers are just kind of an additional tool that we use to support our hair where it needs it. Does that make sense? Do you mix the I create lift and I create volume together in your palm or layer them? I've tried both. When I layer them, I tend to, mindset wise, I would probably, I haven't done it in a while because that's more of like a summertime sequence for me. But I probably would use the lift as a filler and the volume as a sealer in that scenario. Whereas if I'm mixing them together to make that cream that I was telling you about, I wish I had them here because I would just show you what that cocktail looks like. But if you have both, like just put one pump of foam in your hand and a little bit of I create volume and rub them together and you'll see what I mean. It's like a cream. It's really lovely. I would use that as a filler. Unless you had really low porosity hair and you just wanted to seal with that, and that could be great too. Again, sealing doesn't have to be a gel. It's your intention with your actions that matter more than the product you're using. So if you want to seal with a cream, you can seal with a cream. You're like, if I took Quiet Calm and I used it with prayer hands, it would help my hair, my cuticles stay down. So makes it a sealer. Is inner piece a sealer or a filler? So yeah, same deal, Amy, about like, it depends how you use it. The first time I used inner piece, I used it as a sealer. So I use it like with prayer hands on soaking wet hair. It does have beeswax in it. So it is, so that's where I like kind of thought, I'm going to use this as a sealer because it has beeswax in it. And then when I did that, I realized that that's not how a lot of people use it. It's like I made a post about it. People were like, oh my God, that's so weird. They use it as a sealer. And I was like, I don't know. That's what I wanted to do the first day I got it. I don't know. What I noticed is that it's kind of like, I also did an experiment where I used EcoSlay Jello Shot, which is a gel, and I used it as a filler and a sealer. And what kind of happens when I used both of those products as seal, when I used EcoSlay as a fill and seal, and when I used inner piece as a seal, my hair gets kind of like bigger, which there are days where like just having big curly hair is like awesome and I love it. But generally, and you guys probably notice, I go for more like flat definition than I do like big hair. But this is like a huge part of this course too, is the idea of embracing frizz. So frizz is not something that we necessarily always have to combat. You can use frizz to your advantage. So for example, if you have really fine, thin hair, and when your hair starts clumping, when you start embracing the natural curls that your hair has and it starts to clump as opposed to being straight and kind of independent strands, a lot of women with finer, thinner hair get worried about their scalp showing because they don't have as many physical hair strands and their hair strands aren't very thick. So when they start clumping together, there's spaces in between the clumps. So you start getting worried about scalp coverage. Okay, well, if you're worried about scalp coverage, then there's a few things that you can do to use frizz to your advantage. For example, you could use a product like Inner Peace that's a little bit tackier, or a gel as a filler. If you try scrunching in a gel as a filler and like trying to use that as your filler, you're going to get more volume, right? So you get more volume. You can not put conditioner all the way to your roots, right? We talked about how conditioner is alkaline or is acidic. So it's closing the cuticle of the hair shaft and helping it lay flat and smooth. Okay, well, definition isn't improving your scalp coverage. So if you don't use conditioner at your roots and you're allowing that natural frizz to kind of help you with scalp coverage, like that's helpful for you. So using frizz to your advantage, I should probably do a video on that. Maybe we'll do that week 6. So point being, Amy, I would say most people use Inner Peace as a filler on soaking wet hair, raked in, kind of scrunched in. It's nice and tacky. It creates a nice barrier, but it does have things in it that can make it a sealer, so you can prayer hands it on at the end. Also, I would try both and see what you like, and you're probably going to have to try both more than once because there's no experiment in the world where you run the experiment once and it's a definitive outcome. You have to run the experiment like multiple times, and then you find like, what is the trend? So don't think that your experiments are ever done the first day. What you guys are doing right now, because so much of this is new to you, a lot of the hand feel experimentation and getting used to what your hand feels like, you're just in data collection mode. You're just trying to collect as many dots of like, what does my hair feel like when I take it to day 9 this time? What does it feel like when I take it to day 9 next time? Because I can guarantee you that if you take your hair to day 9 twice, it's not going to be the same both times. It's just not. There's some days, like when I did the wash day experiment, I think I was really shocked because I brought my hair like day 12 or something, like madness. And I never, ever, like I never do that. But I was like being very conscious about it for this experiment. And when I got it to day 9, I was like, this is not, like I really wanted the visual to be super noticeable. And so when I did the second video, I thought, okay, this is going to be the video where I show them build up. And then I got in the shower and I started showing like what I was doing. And I was like, wow, my hair is actually taking on hydration pretty well considering. So then I took my hair even further. So yeah, point being, you guys are in data collection mode. You're going to have to bring your hair to the extremes. I know some of you guys are a little bit nervous about bringing your hair to the extremes, but you're going to have to do it multiple times and get used to what it feels like until it's second nature. It could take a dozen times. Like this is not stuff that you learn overnight. Capiche? All right, so in your journals, I want to hear you guys talk about hand feel a lot more. When you're bringing your hair to certain steps, when you're making certain decisions, I want to know, what did your hair feel like and why did that draw you to do that action? My hair is, I washed my hair or I got my hair totally saturated and it felt like this. So I cleansed. And after I cleansed, I noticed that my hair started feeling like this. So then I conditioned. And when I conditioned, my hair felt like, and use your hand feel charts and start noticing and talking about what your hair feels like at each step. I'm going to put this flow chart in there for you guys, give you guys some ideas of when to do it, that kind of check-in, and when to like, okay, what does my hair feel like now? There's like certain times in your routine that are really good places to do that. So I have that all outlined for you guys very roughly. I just put this together this morning. This was my great shower idea. Anybody else have genius ideas in the shower? So like, I'm gonna make them a chart. So that will be this week. And I'm looking forward to reading your journal entries and hearing all about your hand feel experience. This is going to help me so much. I am way better able to help you over the interwebs with what the heck is happening if I can hear you describe what your hair feels like, because I can't feel it. If you guys were here and I could feel it, I could use my own instinct and trust my own instinct and do my own thing, but also you probably wouldn't learn as much. So this can be an incredibly powerful exercise if you guys pay attention to that hand feel, work on how to communicate it, because when you learn how to communicate it, then you're gonna be teaching yourself. It's almost like reinforcing what you felt with yourself because you're explaining it, right? This is how tutors, or like when I was tutoring, like even with the curly hair stuff, like I learned way more about curly hair when I started helping other people with curly hair, right? So when you start talking about it and communicating it, I think it's going to be super helpful. Can you add details in the hand feel chart about how good hydration feels? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, ma'am, I can. Yeah, I'll add it right in the center. Yes, ma'am. That's an awesome idea. I will do that. So I'm going to try to get this out to you guys either this afternoon or it's Tuesday. So weird with the holiday and everything. I will get this out to you guys as soon as possible. You will have the weekend to experiment. And I'm really looking forward to your journal entries this week. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.